All right, I'd like to call the May 13th Wilsonville Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting to order. And Asaman, if you could please do roll call.
All right, Amanda Aird,
Here.
Jim Barnes,
Here.
Dahi Chen,
Here.
Daniel Christensen.
Here.
Nate Early. And Nate did reach out to us saying he wasn't going to be able to attend. Jennifer Link Rashko. She was also a no. And Jeff Redman. Hi, Jeff. And Jeff, I don't know if you want to try unmuting just so we can make sure.
There we go.
There we go. Okay.
How's that work? Thank
Awesome.
you.
Perfect. All right, Jim, I'll turn over to you.
All right. I presume everyone has had a chance to read the last meeting minutes. Are there any questions or comments on the prior minutes? Hearing none. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the minutes say aye. Aye.
Hey,
Raise your hand. Most minutes are approved. Thank you all very much. And then for citizen input, I'm not aware of any. So Asaman, has anybody submitted anything? Or is
No.
anybody waiting to come online?
No, we didn't receive any input, and I don't see any attendees waiting to speak.
Okay. I did see a nice article this week in the spokesman on the pumpkin and the granite and that process kicking off. So that was nice.
Mhm.
And then next, first item on the agenda then is budget status. Not sure who's speaking to that.
I think Asaman's going to share her screen and bring up a couple slides. We'll just go over it real quickly. And then we're happy to answer any questions that all of you may have on the various program areas. So Asaman, when you're ready to share your screen.
Okay, yeah, just a moment. Let's see.
While Asaman's loading that up, just for the board, I know over the last couple months, and I guess historically from a board perspective, board members have been interested, how are we spending funds? What does revenue look like? Obviously, this time of COVID has impacted things dramatically, both from a revenue and an expense perspective. We'll go through our revenue first, then expenses. Just to give you a heads up, the number you see next to or below the various items, that's for the revenue. That's what we've brought in year to date. So with about 2 months left in this fiscal year, that percentage below is how that amount compares to what we had budgeted. And then on the expense side, once again, the amount you see listed is what we've spent year to date, and the percentage is how that compares to the budgeted amount that we thought we would spend in those areas. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Asaman, who can start with some rental information. Asaman, I don't know if it's just me, but I cannot hear if you are speaking.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. So the facility rentals, those are at 0 because the Toshman House and the community center have been closed since last March. They're still closed. And the park rentals, the shelters were in the barn were also closed last year. We were able to open the fields up last fall for soccer, so we made some revenue there. And then this spring, we have been able to start taking reservations for the shelters and the barn, and we've got some field reservations going as well. That number will be a little higher here here shortly. Probably add another 10,000 to that with some field sport organization field reservations that we're still finalizing their invoices for the spring season. So
All
yeah,
right.
so
Thank you.
So for class registrations, we've brought in $16,700 since last July. So that's about 18% of what we were, targeting. We've been doing a lot of free programming. I don't want that percentage or that number to be perceived as lack of programs, because that's not the case. We have been super busy with classes. This does include both revenue for senior programs as well as adult evening weekend programming. What we've been able to make has largely been through some spring camps that we were able to offer, some various online classes. As Osman said, the community center has remained closed, but Brad has also been able to do some personal training classes and things like that. So we have been offering what we can and primarily doing a lot of free non-registration required programs. For sport camps, it is actually, a bit of a more positive picture. We have been able to bring in 90% of what we had planned. And that's because most sport camps are outside, or most of the camps sports programs are outside, which we were able to do all of last summer with some, factors in play, like smaller group sizes. But it didn't really, I don't want to say it didn't affect us too, drastically. It did, but we were still able to offer a wide variety of camps last summer. As well as this summer. I think we have a lineup of roughly 40 different camps. And our biggest sport camp provider is Soccer Shots. And they actually, the way that works is we'll get a large check from them in August, which is why you see kind of this reflected here now, is because we received that money last August, which was included in this budget year. So looking good there at 90%.
Next is that Clackamas County Title III you see, and best explanation that I can give you on that. That is funds, those are federal funds that are primarily Older American Act dollars that are cycled through Clackamas County. Our community center is one of many community centers or senior centers within the county that gets those funds allocated, and that funding is primarily based on the nutrition program at the community center. So the home delivered meals. There also is some funding in there that is allocated for social work and a very minimal amount for fitness classes. But the majority of that funding is related to the nutrition program. That number you see, they're usually quarterly payments. So you can take that number and understand we're about 75% of the funding so far. So we should see another influx of funds here at the end of the fiscal year, which will push us over that 100% mark that we had anticipated. But you'll see on the next slide that our nutrition costs have gone up, but we'll touch on that on the next slide. But the Clackamas County Title III is just money that's part of a county contract that is federal dollars. And then there at the bottom, overall, this is all parks and recreation revenue. We're coming in about 26%. Obviously, not being able to rent much and not being able to run any programs has significantly impacted what we had projected for our revenues for this fiscal year. Before we go on to expenses, I'll open it up if anyone has any questions on any of that.
I have a question. Is Is any of this, the revenue tied to debt service, or is this just for O&M, just for the programs and the facilities that, I'm just kind of curious. I mean, are you in a hole in terms of having a budget deficit, or is this, I mean, what is the implications of this?
Well, from a revenue perspective, this is simply charges for service or that one county contract. So from that perspective, it is just the revenue. From an expense perspective, you're going to see that those expenses have fluctuated. The Parks and Recreation Department is primarily funded, or a good chunk of it is funded by the general fund. So what we don't make up in a revenue versus expense is made up by the city's general fund.
No questions for me.
Before we move on. Hearing none, we can go on to expenses. And I didn't see.
So as you can see there,
Hey,
our
Dustin.
parks maintenance team for materials and service, you're on a $450,000 expense line item there. You know, this year we've been very diligent with our spend. Not really sure how we're gonna come out on the other side of COVID, so we were super conservative early on. We're at about 65% spend. I think this number is reflective of April. We'll come in a little higher than that by the end of the year as we look to install some landscapes and do some bark dusting and some other things you guys have probably noticed going on in the parks to kind of get ready for spring and summer. But that's really where we come in at park maintenance.
Thank you.
At the community center, we're about 71% of our budgeted for materials and services. And one thing I will point out, all of these numbers, both for Dustin, myself, and Erica, this is just materials and services segment of our budget. This isn't staffing related. Those are pretty much status quo for most of our areas. So didn't get into that, but this is just materials and services. And as I mentioned previously, because of the influx that we've had in home delivered meals, the majority of our spend this year has been on the nutrition related services. But traditionally, the nutrition related costs are completely offset by that county funding. So even though we've upped the numbers and upped the cost, that's being offset by that extra revenue from the county.
On a delivery, Brian, is that volunteer delivery or does the city pay somebody or city staff deliver? How does that delivery work?
Good question, Jim. In normal times, our volunteer drivers. When COVID hit, due to safety protocols, we had to stop using volunteer drivers, and Smart Transit, who has the program of Dial-A-Ride, which gets seniors around town, has been able to step in, and 2 Dial-A-Ride drivers have absorbed the meal delivery as part of their daily job duties.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so for recreation and admin, like you saw on the previous slide, with that 18% portion of revenues, it doesn't hurt us too bad because we've only spent 26% of our budget there, and 78,000 of that is tourism related. So really, we've only spent 70,000 on programs and such, not even. So those, I mean, we've just been, paying less contractors with less programming. You're doing less contracts and payments there. Obviously, a big expense typically would be large events. So, things like booking a band, movies, things like that. We haven't been doing. So that's been kind of a cost savings there. And then we've really been focusing a lot on, I think everything we've done, it feels like, has been some sort of free virtual drive-through sort of program at little to no cost for participants. So it's really just a lot of material expenses for things like prize giveaways, free handout type things, and some materials to do crafts and things like that. So definitely coming in under budget at 26% there.
Thanks, Erica. And the last thing I would point out, as you might be doing some of this math in your head, for both the community center and that rec and admin, these numbers also encompass all utilities necessary. So this is where we're having to pay out of for our building operations, the electricity, the natural gas, the water. So we pay all of our own utilities out of that same. So, we haven't spent 70,000 on a bunch of things. A lot of that is just utilities to keep the two buildings open.
Erica, you mentioned movies. It's probably too soon to know the answer, but is Movies in the Park likely to happen this summer or to be determined?
We're definitely doing some planning to try to see if we can make that happen. It will probably look a little bit differently. Of course, we don't know what, scenarios we'll be in July and August when movies are typically held. But Brian, Justin, and I were just out in the park the other day, spray painting circles, socially distanced circles out in the lawn to try to do a little grouping of pods to see if that could be something that we could implement to, try to safely have these larger events again. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't say they're off the table, and we're making some moves to see if we can make it happen.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Quick question for Dustin. Dustin, those numbers for the park maintenance, does that include all that extra effort with the ice storm cleanup?
So it does not. That's just our standard operation and maintenance. Anything like ice storm related is coming out of a separate line item citywide.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that the end of the budget presentation?
Yeah, Jim, and unless anyone has any more specific questions or would like to delve deeper into those, we just wanted to kind of give everyone a quick snapshot of where we're at and where we've been.
All right, thank you. And I think the city budget committee meetings ought to be kicking off here before too long. You gave us an update of that meeting or two ago. Is that still basically the same plan, the two projects you were taking forward? Things like the bathrooms at the memorial, and I forget what else was on there.
Yeah, that's correct. The new bathroom in the center of Memorial there, and the
Playground.
the new Boone's Ferry playground that aligns with Boone's Ferry Central on the master plan would be the two big project items for this budget for parks.
Thank you. Next up then would be Gina giving us an update for stepping in for Parks Director.
Thanks, Jim. It's great to see you again.
Hello.
And just, you mentioned the budget committee. Budget committee meetings are actually next week, next Wednesday and Thursday. So the first budget committee meeting will be on Wednesday, and they're all going to be held via Zoom. So if you're interested in just kind of tuning in and hearing the conversation, all that information is on the city's website and you can find it there. So I don't know, I guess I know a couple of you, but not all of you. So let me just kind of introduce myself briefly, and then I'm certainly open to questions if people have questions for me. So I'm Gina Troja. I am the Assistant City Manager. As you can probably tell, this office may look familiar to you. This is Mike McCarty's old office. Mike, as you all know, retired the end of April after 40 years in public service to several different cities. Well-deserved opportunity for him to enjoy time with his kids and grandkids and have some time to himself. So during this interim period, while we're hiring a new Parks and Recreation Director, I'm kind of helping out the department and working out of this office when I can. So excited to be here with you all today. A little bit about myself. So I've worked for the city for 14 years now. It's truly been an honor to work for this community. It's a wonderful organization, a great community of citizens that are dedicated, certainly dedicated to Parks and Recreation. As you all know, Parks and Recreation always ranks very high when we do our community survey every 2 years. So in large part, that's due to the effort that all of you as the Parks and Recreation Board put in. So kudos to you, and thank you for taking your time as volunteers to do this. I really appreciate it. And I have the fortunate opportunity to live here in Wilsonville, and I've got kids in the school system, and I can't say enough good things as a citizen who enjoys our parks and recreation programs. The team you have here in this department are really phenomenal. So I'm here if you have questions for me. Erica kind of touched on it a little bit about movies in the park. City manager made a decision recently for us to open as many recreation opportunities as we can for the community. As more people are getting vaccinated, and we're going to try to do that, as Erica said, as safely as possible. And we obviously will comply with the governor's guidelines, but we're still working through that as a staff team. But our goal is to see what we can do in terms of offering opportunities for our residents who I know are anxious to get outside and to have some activities to participate in, especially during the summer. So you'll probably hear more from Erica and the team here as we kind of move forward, but expect to see information on social media and probably information in the, well, I know there's information in the Spokesman newspaper about it as well. And this also includes water features. So we'll be opening up those water features here soon as well. So exciting opportunity for this department. And I'll leave it if anybody has questions for me. Thanks, Jim.
Gina, a couple of years ago, we were talking, and at that point, you were thinking that the new skate park and pump track at Memorial Park were a year away, and then some of the construction delays pushed that out. Where do you think we're at with those projects now?
You know, Jim, that's kind of hard to tell because, I mean, as you know, we went through a process with a task force, a Parks Bond task force prior to COVID. And then, you know, timing was really unfortunate. And when COVID happened, that whole process was put on pause for a while. So I think there'll be conversations in the near future about, you know, getting that pump track going and getting some of these other projects that are outlined in the in all of our master plans for that matter. We just haven't gotten to that point yet, especially as we've been dealing with all of the COVID stuff this last year. So yes, it's put kind of a delay in things, but I would suspect that we'll start moving on kind of a schedule for a lot of those and a plan for a lot of those as soon as we can.
And do you happen to know on the city's general fund, is the revenue for the next fiscal year, how does it compare to this fiscal year? Is it going up, going down?
You know, I don't have my budget document in front of me, unfortunately. I left it at home, of all places, because I was doing some nightly reading of the budget document, because, you know, that's what you do. We've been fortunate that our revenue has been fairly stable. So from a revenue standpoint, we've been fairly fortunate. Again, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but we've been fortunate through this whole COVID pandemic that revenue has remained fairly constant. And so that's been helpful to this community to be able to provide the services that we want to provide and that the community wants.
Yeah, thank you for the update.
Any other questions for me by anybody else, Jim? Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for serving.
Thank you. Dustin, you're up next on Parks Report.
Yeah, so the team's been very busy. We are warm and dry, which is unusual. So irrigation startup has been hot and heavy, especially on our ball fields. We've been eagerly finding leaks everywhere. So they've been chasing those. A lot of bark dust has gone in. We had the work week, which we had a great turnout for. Erica and the team did a great job getting some help in there to help us get some bark dust in some key areas. Boone's Ferry, some parks up in Billable. I got a new fresh coat after 4 or 5 years without it. So really great turnout, great resources there. We also had a community volunteer event with Solve. They came in and awesome. I can probably give the number, but I think they cleared something like 210 trees of ivy down along the Memorial Park Trail there. Really a great effort that that we just don't have the resources to do on a regular basis. So it's great to have teams like them come in and help us kind of mitigate some of that along that river walk. Our annual flower displays are in. The town center sign, the two at Marassi Plaza and the one at Memorial now have annual flower displays in. Tommy Reeder and Chris Delic were instrumental in getting those in, and we're going to look to have them in the spring every year now to add a nice little flash of color with our biggest, you know, kind of flagship park there at Memorial and Marassi Plaza. Other than that, the team is just very busy trying to stay ahead of the work. We are at full capacity with everything we're trying to do. Get some fertilizer down, get the grass greened up, keep it watered, and just stay ahead of it. We're in full summer maintenance mode, probably about a month earlier than we're used to. It should be a little cooler, a little wetter, a little slower growing conditions. So always eager to hear if you guys see anything out there that we can work to improve. We'll do our best with the RP 7 and 8. I know Dahe has eyes on that. That project should start moving forward here again. You should see some construction turning out there, starting with some landscaping going on the north segment as soon as next week or possibly the week after. And then the parks maintenance team is working through the takeover of Edelweiss Park yet from the HOA up there. And that should happen here in the next 3 to 4 weeks is my best guess, as they finish up some punch list items there. And then we like to take over that wonderful 5-acre park up in Villavois.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for Dustin?
Yeah, Dustin, Jeff Redmond, just a couple of call outs. Maybe you could guide this. 2 bridges, the one that connects the Frisbee Park with the dog park. And then farther, I guess it would be north, the Courtside development, which I live in. There's a trail that goes down, crosses the same creek, comes back up behind the high school.
Yep.
Is there any discussion about maybe, taking a hard look at those bridges and bringing them up to speed so we don't have to replace them entirely?
So the one in Memorial Park, we actually have cabling sitting in North Portland at Pacific Fence and Pacific Rope and Wire to come in and make the repairs for where the cabling is missing.
Okay.
And then we're going to take a look at it as a team as to what replacing all of those cables may look like in the next few years for safety concerns. And then through this winter, the plan is to have a team go out there and actually pressure wash that bridge off and kind of get it back up into a good looking condition and keep it, well maintained. One that crosses on the Beckman Creek Trail that goes from Courtside down and then back up by Hathaway Park. We've made some repairs just to the decking of that bridge, the rubber mat. There were some holes in that. I think somebody burnt a hole in it, some things like that. The team's actually going down there tomorrow to clear that trail north-south from the storm damage yet. And we typically take a pretty good look at that once a year when we're there cleaning up that trail north-south for stormwater access at the condition of that bridge, and then make some decisions as to how we're going to proceed for the next year with maintenance on it. So
cool. All right.
We've got our eyes on it, and we'll make sure we keep them in great shape.
Right on. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Erica, for the recreation report.
Yeah, so last month was Spring Fling, which was our first year doing kind of some environmental programming. It went really well. We had a goat petting day. Dustin didn't mention the goats that he hired, but they were all through kind of Memorial Park, kind of near the entrance as you come down. There's like a set of stairs from the apartment buildings. And they just like munched their way through some ivy. So we kind of capitalized on that and had a little goat petting event day, which was cool. It wasn't like an overly nice day, which I was kind of happy about because we didn't have like an overwhelming crowd. It was just like a steady stream of people, which was really easy to handle, but still fun. So that was great. We did a couple small in-person vermicomposting classes. Asaman actually got to go to one that both filled up. So that was also great. One of the parks maintenance team members, Chris Delk, taught that. So that was also cool to kind of have that overlap with the parks team. Did a number of different giveaways. So that was just fun, creative, cool way to engage the community. Did that Trillium drive-through. which was also a hit. We think we gave away like 200 something trillium, which was fun. And then let's see, this past Tuesday, we did a Chalk the Park event in Town Center Park. You guys probably remember those from last August. We did a couple, did one in Town Center this past Tuesday, which was great. We had a bunch of people come out for that, and we're actually going to do another one next Thursday on May 20th in Town Center Park as well. And then, yeah, coming up, we're just trying to, get a handle on how we can offer movies. Got some tentative dates picked out for those. Same thing, if programming's back on, hopefully we're just trying to get creative with what we're going to be able to offer safely and within guidelines. Thinking of doing something around July, which is National Parks and Rec Month. So hopefully putting together a calendar of events to celebrate our department and all things Parks and Rec, but probably also doing some sort of giveaways or, kind of like Chalk the Park, but doing just some like stop and play sort of activities with hula hoops, jump ropes, bubbles, that kind of thing. I am putting together an online version of our activity guide. So typically that would have gone out in April. So I'm a little behind on that, but just had the idea to do just a purely PDF online version that'll be on our website that's going to list all of our offerings. Like I said, in the budget report, we do have, I think it's over 40 different camps being offered. So there is still a ton of stuff that we're doing. The library is still doing a bunch of programs. So we're going to get their, kind of efforts combined in there to advertise those. So that will be coming up here soon. I'm going to try to get that published early next week, just on our website for people to have. So we can send them somewhere when they start calling about programs, which they already have. So yeah, also trying to look at some outdoor classes. A lot of instructors are still a little bit hesitant, and it's so hard because who knows, given today's news, if we're going to be needing to wear masks in July and August, I don't know. But a lot of people hesitant to try and teach in masks outside in July and August heat. So that's something we're looking at. The garden is completely open now. Things are starting to grow down there. Had a huge influx of people wanting to be at the garden this year, probably more than ever. We have a wait list of probably 30 some people at this point. And then I don't think Dustin mentioned it, but there's a new pollinator garden by the Stein barn that got put in. It's kind of got, I don't know the exact names, but there's like a small, medium, and large size example pollinator garden. And we're going to be looking at doing some programming, educational, environmental awareness programming there. So that's where we're at.
All right, good list, good update. Thank you. Brian, on the communities, or I guess any questions for Erica?
Is there any discussion to expand the community garden, since there's that big open lot that's already over there? Seems like a logical place to put more if that many people are going to be interested moving forward.
Yeah, I think at one point there was even potentially a council goal around exploring the opportunity to add additional community gardens. I don't know that we've actually identified a spot for one, but it is definitely, I think, something that's becoming a more apparent growing need, especially after this year, and also the never-ending push. We did a survey this year with our community garden signups, as you're probably aware because you have a garden plot, but around who would be interested in year-round gardening, so keeping their plot year-round versus, giving it up every November. And I would say probably 70-80% of the people were interested in that too. So yeah, definitely something I think we'll begin to look at a little more seriously.
Yeah, and I mean, like all the new houses that are going in are just really tiny lots and no garden space.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions for Erica? If not, Brian, on the community center?
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, community center, obviously we're still closed. Per the state guides, us and hookah bars have no clear end in sight. But before this meeting, I was on a call with some other county folks from around the county, and we do know that county leadership we'll be speaking with the state to try and get us a path to reopening, just so we know what those metrics are and what that could look like. Primarily focused on that congregate lunch program. So those folks that would be coming in to lunch with us and how that could look. So we do know that the leadership at the county level is starting to have those conversations with the state to see how we can get open. But in the meantime, we're doing our best to continue to engage our older adults. Next Friday, the 21st, we're having another drive-through event. So that'll be from 1 to 2 p.m. Next Friday at the community center. Y'all are welcome to come through. We won't be checking ID, so come on in or come on by. But yeah, we'll have ice cream sandwiches, some giveaways, some brain healthy activities. We like to do word searches and various things. And then a few kind of manual type crafts just to give folks something to do as they're isolated in their home. We are hearing though that as folks are getting their vaccinations, they are more inclined to get out and about. So while they're not able to come to us, sorry, I'm in my backyard and there's bugs flying at me. We do know they are getting out in the community and starting to get out to dinner, starting to do things. So while we're not able to provide that, it's a positive for the health of the community as a whole. Brad Moore, our personal trainer, who's been doing all virtual small group training, will be starting to resume some in-person training. As Erica mentioned, we do have that mask requirement still outside, but those folks, just from a personal training standpoint, are willing to put that mask on and have that interaction they can't have quite as efficiently over Zoom. Brad's also, I think I mentioned at the last meeting, but we've had great success with our stretch, strength, and stamina program. It's designed for a little less able-bodied adult. They can do all the activities seated. It's a free program we're offering twice a week via Zoom, and we got over 20 people that sign up and log in to take that with him. So nice to be able to offer that, especially at no charge. And then starting here at the end of the month, we'll be bringing back a watercolor program. It was one of our more popular programs we offered in person at the center. They will be offering it virtually via Zoom, which they actually did in the fall of last year and had decent success. So excited just to be able to offer some more engagement activities, a little bit of socialization for folks. And we talked about meals and the cost associated with that. We were running some numbers. We're actually on pace here to finish up the fiscal year, so another month or so, and we will have served 24,000 meals this year. So that's 24,000 meals that went out to some of our most vulnerable in the community. So great that our kitchen staff is able to provide that service. And as I mentioned, smart get those meals out to folks. So real cool program that we're proud to provide. Just some other kind of auxiliary type things that we're doing within our department. Work continues with the Korean War Memorial Foundation for that interpretive center, finalizing some of the stories that the design firm will design the exhibits around. So getting closer to being able to see what that first look at the design might be. And then Osman and I continue
You're frozen, Brian.
It looks like we lost him.
for
Oh,
what
there he
their
goes.
summer concert series might look like. So they have not committed to doing it yet, but they have not committed to not doing it yet. So conversations continue what that might look like.
Hey, Brian, we lost about the last minute of your discussion, partner.
That's what my computer told me, Jeff. Let me see if I can recap that. Where'd you lose me?
You were just going into the Rotary with you and Osman working with Rotary, I think.
Perfect. So Rotary has not committed to doing concerts yet, but they have not committed to not doing concerts. So discussions are ongoing what that could look like in order to do those in a safe manner that would comply with COVID guidelines. Obviously, the information that came out here recently might change their willingness to do it. So that is not off the table yet.
Thank you. Any questions for Brian? Seeing none and hearing none. Any general board comments?
Brian, just out of curiosity, what is the determining factor for the concerts in the parks to proceed or not? I mean, is it all whose decision? And I got to believe these bands have to be notified in advance because they run some pretty, rigid schedules, and just the coordination of efforts entirely.
Yeah, Jeff, that's a good question. I mean, ultimately, it's while we partner with Rotary, the Rotary Club of Wilsonville is who manages that concert series. So it comes down to, is the Rotary comfortable with offering the series in this time of COVID? So I'd hate to say any more than that on what their thought process is, but it's really a Rotary function.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
So Brian, the city won't tell organizations they can't do something.
We will tell organizations, we will work with them to meet the state guidelines and any additional safety requirements the city might have. So, but we are open to the conversation. We are open to having concerts and would like to support their efforts.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any other general comments, questions before we bring the meeting to a close? Not seeing any questions or hands raised. So otherwise, well, thank you all. It's not quite the weekend, but have a good weekend when it gets here. Looks like the weather forecast is awesome, as Dustin was saying. Like the rest of you, I'm watering the yard way too early already. But time to get the boat out, and the river's looking good. So the positive side of that. All right, all. Well, thank you all for participating, and we'll either see you sometime this summer or October 14th. So take care. Have a good evening.
Thanks, everybody. God
Thanks,
bless.
everyone.
Bye.
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 Everyone.
Bye-bye.